So one thing that's always asked when BCBAs are just coming up and realizing that there's this thing that came out of, after all, our discipline and emerged inside behavioral analytic thinking called acceptance and commitment therapy, or acceptance and commitment training. Either way, it's still called ACT. One of the questions that comes up is how does this fit within my scope of practice? Well, you have to distinguish between the competency and scope of practice. So yeah, anything that we do, we have to learn how to do it. That's a competence issue. The practice issue is, should we do it, even if we know how to do it, within what is sanctioned by our particular certification, licensing, our professional role, and so forth. There's a lot of things that we do as behavior analysts that could be boosted by the acceptance and commitment training or ACT work. That includes work directly with, for example, children with developmental disabilities. There's nice pieces now showing that diffusion methods, acceptance methods, perspective-taking methods, focusing attention on the now, mindfulness training, even some work on values. Even it doesn't take very much, after all, with language and cognition, before people know how to get in their own way by their own private events, and being able to walk that out with the recipients of care that you're probably working with right now, is part of what you'll see in boot camp. But then there's also parents and staff, and working with people who are more verbally able, high functioning folks on the spectrum, etc., where now it's really evident that private events and how we talk to ourselves about things is playing a big role. Rule governance is playing a big role. And there's certain methods inside the ACT work to help us diminish that role when it's toxic, or augment that role when it's helpful, create more flexibility, more variation in which you can select things that are helpful. So for example, if you were working with a parent around implementing a behavioral program, and that parent is bound up with I don't want to do anything that restricts or creates any emotional upset in my child, because after all they have such a hard life anyway, and where you've got now some sort of barrier to falling through what we need to do in order to even move that child's behavior. You want to have some techniques to do that, other than reverting to more mentalistic talk, or refusing to talk about it, or dumping a bunch of behavioral ease on people who are not used to that language, wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. And so what you will find here is a sufficient technical training that you can kind of make sense of it conceptually, and a practical training that you can actually do it. And there will even be a session on scope of practice where we will walk out, how does this fit within the task list that BCBAs are currently functioning under? And it's opened up in the form of equivalence-based instruction and direct requests to know more about derived relational responding. It's opened up in such a way that now I think everybody recognizes we have to go into this domain, and the number of studies showing that it's helpful. Of those several hundred studies on ACT, probably at least 50 of them are in mainstream applied behavior analysis journals in one sort or another. And so the data are there, the theory and concepts are there, and it's within our existing scope of practice. Now, I do think as we get more into this, we may find that there's places where we can responsibly begin to expand our scope of practice. But that's a one step at a time thing. And that's why we'll have that conversation, so that you stay within your competence, of course, but stay also within the scope of practice. But also as a field that we continue to expand that scope appropriately, responsibly, one step at a time, when we've not yet fully assimilated how the developments that have happened in the research literature now empower us to do a responsible thing that expands out the range of things that we do. So we're going to cover some of those things as well.